mean, the powers that we have as humans, let alone as like a group of people with a deep-rooted culture, sometimes we sell ourselves short or become mentally complacent. If we make that jump, we become unstoppable.
Welcome back with the Power Perception Podcast. We're introducing our guest today, the Player Personnel Analyst for the University of Texas right now, my longtime mentor and friend, the one and only Jake Langi. Welcome.
I appreciate you, Kobe.
Yeah, pleasure having you on. So for all my guests who come on to the podcast, I think the first thing I usually ask them is, being introduced to the sport of football, there's a time you got. So when was that time for you? When's the first time you got?
You know, I think we'll probably get into my story a little later, but I actually didn't play a whole lot of football growing up.
Wow.
Yeah, and so one of those things that my dad didn't want me to do. So the few years that I did play, probably spring ball of junior year, getting lit up by Lenny Vale. Yeah, Lenny Vale is one of those Trinity players that people don't really talk about, but dude was a real headhunter. I mean, he had no regard for his body, and he didn't get the hype that the other guys did. But if you ask anybody from that team, they'll all tell you he was the hardest hitter. Yeah.
Wow.
So, I mean, it wasn't the slobber knocker where I was looking out the side of the helmet, through the hole, but it was pretty close. Pretty close. Yeah. Lenny was a dog, man.
Awesome, man. I think the biggest thing for me is seeing all these like experiences of people, getting got for the first time is like really humbling. Yeah. There isn't a person who plays this game that hasn't gotten got at least one time or another.
Right. And I think the reality is the first time we ever got was by our own fathers.
That's true.
Let's be honest. So you get beat up a few times at home and you're good at school.
Yeah.
Yeah. So especially when your dad is 6'4", 360 and one hit acquittal for a left hook.
Kopilahi, man.
Yeah.
Real deal, man.
Yeah, no doubt.
So my relationship with Jake kind of comes with his dad, just to kind of explain the dynamic between both of our families. Growing up in the same ward, I remember from a very young age, his dad, who's also named Kope.
Right.
My first name is Jacob as well. So whenever he would see me, the first thing he would do is tell me, he's like, you know why your dad named you Jacob? He's like, it's not because the prophet in the Book of Mormon. It's actually because your dad named you after me.
Right.
And so every single time he'd come around, he'd give me a hug, reach into his pocket, give me $10 and let me go on my merry way.
Yeah.
And for the longest time, I actually believed those things are true. And then my dad was like, no, just give Kope his shine because that's one of my good friends.
Right,
and
no
so
doubt.
He would just laugh about it every single time I saw him.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, my dad definitely had a special place for you in his heart. And I mean, your dad and my dad were super close. And so even before you were around, like I remember your dad used to bring your mom over to our apartment for dates, because they needed to be, I guess, chaperoned because, the Tongan culture of, the woman always needs to be, chaperoned. And so they used to come over for dinner. And so my dad and my mom and dad used to feed them and they talk and all that stuff. And so when I was younger, I used to play basketball with your dad. I mean, I'm sure he can't move around like he used to, but like I bet he's still got that jumper. It's probably a set shot by now, but I mean, he could shoot a ball.
I think I remember in my younger years when my dad was still the bishop, and it would be weird because sometimes he would bring his gym bag with him to Mutual, and I would see him go against all the kids and the youth, and I remember his favorite move, the little turnaround jump shot, and hit it all the time, and so we were laughing because as he got older, I kind of like stole that move. It was like the move I go to.
Right.
But what's good for me is I'm 6'3", and my dad's only 5'11", but I'd see him get those shots over guys who were like 6'5", 6'6", a lot taller than he was at that time.
No, he's 5'11", but like he has a big presence, and so like very well respected, from his time in Euless, and so I mean, I also have a special place in my heart for him too because my dad got into some trouble and did some time, and I guess he was basically petitioning to the judge, he was giving reasons why, he should be, let out. And maybe 2 months ago, I found a letter that your dad wrote on his behalf.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it was pretty cool. It was, your dad co-signed for the type of guy that my dad was, that he was a family guy. He came here to this country to work hard, and he made a mistake, but he could be trusted to not screw up again. So, I mean, it was pretty cool for me to find that. And then, fast forward for us to be talking like today, pretty damn cool.
Man, that's awesome. I had no recollection of that.
Yeah.
Or I had no idea that even happened.
Yeah, this goes deeper than just that name.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So, like I said, my dad and your dad were super close, and they had a lot of conversations, and like your dad was always there for my dad. So I'll always remember that.
Awesome, man. Well, big shout out to Pops hooking me up with an interview today, pretty much.
Right. That's a Jason Kidd alley-oop right there.
So I kind of want to dive in, your journey. I believe the journey is a huge part of why and what we do and how we do things. How did you kind of get into the coaching game? Like, where did that all come from? Where did you start off?
Man, honestly, man, I was an idiot growing up. Didn't have a plan, didn't have a life plan. I was that knucklehead kid that thought he knew everything but knew nothing. Didn't want to take advice from anybody, and barely graduated from high school. I think I found my old report card from my senior year. I think I had a 1.9.
Wow.
And it wasn't that I was dumb. It was I didn't care, and so graduate from high school, man, like, life comes at you fast. It'll knock the crap out of you if you're not ready. And so I wasn't ready. So, you work like odd jobs, here and there, and you're not really satisfied with life or whatever. And then, got married probably in my mid-20s, and my dad made my wife promise him that I would go back to school. And so we got married, and we got married in February of 2003, and I was in school that fall.
Wow.
And so the initial plan was to work in law enforcement. I was working for the airlines at the time, and then I left the airlines and got into law enforcement. I was working at the Euless jail. We made the move to Austin. Never thought I'd really live outside of Euless. Thought we'd be back in a couple years. We've been there 16 years now, and which was cool for me though, because honestly, I wasn't really proud of the life that I had before, so it gave me an opportunity to reinvent myself. And going to school and law enforcement, I slowly kind of started to drift away from it. I enrolled at Texas State University, and at the time, law enforcement was still the plan. But had a talk with my wife one night, and I was trying to figure out what I was about, what my passion was, things like that. One of those conversations that you have with yourself when you start creeping up to 30, because you realize, oh crap, what the heck have I accomplished, right? So she said, football. I said, what are you talking about? She goes, you can't ever shut up about football. When I moved to Texas, you were taking me to junior high games on Thursdays, high school games on Fridays. We watched college games on Saturdays, and NFL on Sundays, and then Monday Night Football. She said, are you kidding me? You don't. And so she was paying attention, and I had no idea, so came up with a plan. But the thing was, I thought that my lack of experience growing up would have hurt me, and so I guess out of embarrassment, I didn't want to reach out to anyone else for help. I wanted to do it on my own, because I didn't want to reach out to someone who had played the game for a long time and accomplished some things. I didn't want to go to him and him laugh in my face. You know what I mean? So, man, I approached the coaches at Texas State at the time. you know, and Trinity was really peaking right there at the time as far as being a powerhouse. And I was introduced to one of the coaches, and I said, "Hey, coach, like, I'm a Polynesian guy from Euless Trinity. Like, I have a bunch of relatives that have played the game. I could probably help you out with recruiting. If you guys think you might need my help, here's my number." You know what I mean? So, luckily for me, the first thing he said was, "Do you know Lee Foliaki?" I said, "I do." He goes, "Man, I coached him at A&M." You know, and so because he knew who Lee was, and the type of player that Lee was, he was, and that fact that I was from Euless, and he understood that, you know, having a Polynesian on your staff basically opens up a new pipeline for recruiting. And so he said, "I'll give you a call." So that November, they call me into the office, and they take me into the war room, and they say, "Hey, can you help me recruit this Samoan guy?" And they pointed to a name and a picture. I said, "That guy's not Samoan." I said, "No, he is. He's got the Troy Polamalu hair and everything." I said, "No, he's not Samoan." He said, "No, his coach said he's Samoan." I said, "He's not." He goes, "How do you know?" I said, "That's my cousin." Right? And like their jaws dropped, right? And said, "Can you get him on the phone?" I said, "Sure." So I called Misi, Semisi Hemuli, right? Because I'm related to Semisi and Latu Moala the same way. I said, "Misi, I need Latu's number." He gave it to me. We reached out to him. At the time, he had San Jose State, Washington State, Oregon State, Fresno State, schools like that. But we were FCS at the time.
Wow.
And he had 4 trips. He had 1 remaining. And I said, "Latu, save your last trip for us." He said, "I'm down." And so, like, right there, I proved that I had value. Right? But the thing was, that staff left for Rice, like, the next week.
Oh, man.
But I already knew, like, man, I'm on to something. So the new coaching staff came in, probably about a little over a year later. That staff reached out to me because they had heard about me from the previous staff. And they said, "Hey, man, we're recruiting a Polynesian kid. Can you help us out?" Cool, I'm there. And then I earned their trust, and they asked me to help coach their football camp that year. Had zero experience in coaching football, but they said, "I'll teach you how to teach them." I said, "Cool." And then I guess I earned their trust, and they said, "Hey, we start fall camp in 2 weeks. Can you work with the offensive line coach?" Psh, I'm down. And so that's my initial, like, I guess, step into college football.
Man, it's crazy for me to see because, like, the connection I kind of made with that story was when I started, like, this podcast from the beginning. I started making connections, you know, just calling people that I know. It's like, "Hey, you want to come and join the podcast?" And what I've seen to be true every single time is, like, with our people and our connections we have, it makes it a whole lot easier when we have people who we know kind of, like, vouch for us in
No
a
doubt.
sense. And I just want to give a few shout outs to guys who've kind of helped me. Hema Hemuli,
Right.
Lake's son, he's really been like, I'll shoot him a text, like, "Hey, so what should I do in this situation in terms of working with audio, working with video, lighting, working with cameras and this and that." And he's always kind of, like, veered me into the best situations. Like, "So this is how your setup is. What would be best for you is if you did this."
Right.
And because of my relationship with him, he, like, would throw me a few names, and then I would have another family member come on, and he'll throw me a few names. And little by little, like, it's pretty much the community who's taking
Right.
care of what I'm trying to accomplish with
Yeah.
this podcast. And
Yeah.
I'm truly grateful for
Yeah.
all those people.
Well, I tell you what, if you and your family were known as idiots, no one would help you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But, like, you come from a great family from both sides of the family. You know what I mean? I grew up with your mom's side too. You know what I mean? So, like, when people can vouch for you, I mean, they're going to be willing to help. And so, I mean, you know, the POP, like, brand, I mean, that's your baby now. And so you got to make sure that you protect it, you know. So because people are vouching for you, so you got to make sure you do a good job. People are literally watching and listening to you now. You know what I mean? And so you just got to be mindful of it.
So, segueing into this topic, I really want to go in. Who are some of your mentors, I guess, in the coaching game that kind of helped you prepare?
You know, definitely initially, the O-line coach that I worked for, Ben Norton. Man, I mean, I'm not biased. I mean, I am. Everyone's biased, but I'm not biased in the statement that I think that he's one of the best O-line coaches in the country. Like man, he has an answer for everything. You know what I mean? Everything. Really, really good coach. Like he's gonna challenge you. He's gonna make you second guess if you're about that life. You know, he's gonna push your buttons, but he's gonna prepare you. And the closer that it gets to the game day, he's gonna ease up a little bit. Then on game day, man, he just lets you loose. And so just watching how he approached the game, not just with his preparation, but like his football IQ, like super intelligent guy. You know, I mean, got into like grad school at Vanderbilt. I mean, really smart guy. And so definitely him. And just to kind of piggyback on the whole, you know, master's thing, you know, getting into college football, like I realized I had never been in a room with so many guys with master's degrees. You know, 'cause everyone had one. And growing up, you're told that football are dumb jocks. You know what I mean? But most of those guys cut their teeth as graduate assistant coaches. You know, so they have to be able to get into grad school on their own merits. You know what I mean? And so it was impressive. I was around a lot of intelligent coaches. I mean, to me, they're teachers, right? And so, I mean, it was inspiring for me to be around them. And so, I mean, there's still a chance I might go after my master's at some point. I think probably the most influential mentor in my life is a Polynesian guy from the Bay Area, Tuli Matealona. I don't know of any Polynesian that has the type of football resume that he has. He's worked in NFL Europe, German Football League, a few startup leagues that never really took off. He's worked for the Niners, the Raiders, you know. I mean, and he probably has like a 20-year career in, you know, in football. And so, like, and what was crazy is like, I found out about him through MySpace, you know, and, you know, cause some of the boys were out in Europe playing ball and, you know, and then I noticed that, some dude was like working out there. Like he was out there building championship teams, you know, from an admin standpoint. I said, man, who is this? Right. So I reached out to him and I just told him that, you know, that I looked up to what he was doing. You know, I was just kind of following his career. Then he's been a mentor to me ever since. And I mean, sheesh, man, I'm going to be 44 next week. And man, the way that he talks to me sometimes, I feel like punching him in the mouth. But I keep my mouth shut and I take it because I know that he knows better. You know, and so I remember one time when I was at Texas State, I called him up and I was venting to him for about 20 minutes about some stuff. And once I was done, it kind of went quiet. And I said, Tuli, you there? He goes, yep. He said, you done? And I said, oh, crap, something's coming. I said, yeah, I'm done. And then he goes, let me tell you something, Jake. Shut the F up and go to work. I said, took a deep breath. Was kind of pissed off for a second. Realized that he was right. I needed to get over myself and start grinding. I said, appreciate you, bro. He said, call me later. Bam. Got over myself, went back to work. And so I think if someone would have approached me as maybe from a softer side, I don't think I would have been receptive, you know, because I'm kind of more of an aggressive guy. And so for him to check me like that, almost like a way that my uncles would or my dad would, like I related to that. And man, I can't remember the last time someone talked to me like that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it was almost like my dad or one of my cousins or older cousins or uncles talked to me like that. I thought, yeah, he's right. And so, I mean, that was the best advice that I could have gotten it. Anytime I'm frustrated or not happy with my situation, and I kind of find myself blaming other people or other things, I just kind of remember that, like, shut up and get over yourself, go back to work. Okay, cool, I'm good.
Man, that's so funny. I've had so many cousins who had the opportunity to go and play at the D1 level, and a lot of them. I was actually just talking to my uncle about this last night, and he was telling me, he's like, man, my boys, they all had the opportunity to go and play. And then it seems like every single time I have an opportunity to talk with them, all of their answers and excuses are all sound the same. It's because coach won't play me. It's because, I'm better than this kid, but I don't know why he's starting. And then the thing that always stuck out to me was, being able to take a step back and actually just watch all my family members kind of go through the same thing, knowing they're better than someone, but for some reason they're still not getting on the field. The lesson I came away with was, if you're playing for a guy who doesn't like you, he's already looking for excuses not to play you in the first place. So the thing you have to do is give him no excuses for you not to play.
No doubt.
And so I would tell my little brother the same thing. He's like, your first head coach at Alta, you guys didn't have the best running to start off with. So this next head coach, he's like, he's going to be twice as hard on you. Like, he's expecting a whole lot from you. And if you don't meet those expectations, it's like, then you should expect, some headway coming towards you.
No doubt.
And then he was telling me, he's like, man, sometimes it doesn't make sense why this happens. It's like, well, if I can remember correctly, you were late to meetings this week with
Right.
Mom yelling at you and this and that. It's like you weren't on time to practice every day or this. And then finally, his senior year, I saw him take his leadership to a whole entire another level.
Yeah.
He ends up calling all his teammates in, they do a meeting together. And he owned up to everything he had done the year previous. He's like, the goal here is to win a state championship.
Right.
I'm going to take ownership. I haven't been on time to meetings. I haven't been on time to practice and workouts. It's like, starting from this day forward, you will see better from me.
Yeah, no doubt.
And then he said, when I took ownership for that, I could see the whole entire room change.
Right. And then all of a sudden it really matters to them. Right. And so it's hard to give up once you invest that much. And so a lot of times when I hear that same thing, I'm going to ask the same questions. And so I learned a long time ago that I have to be careful with giving people chances. And, 'cause, man, you get burnt once, you'll learn real quick that you can't really take chances on everybody. I mean, these guys have to be ready. These guys have to be prepared. They have to be about that life. You know what I mean? So, even though our culture is very helping, right? College football is cutthroat. So I have to go after the guys that are ready. So these kids have 17, 18 years to prepare themselves. If they're not ready, man, we can't move on them. I'm not going to put my name and my job on the line for someone who hasn't maximized his opportunities. You know what I mean? So everyone wants to play college ball, but the reality is most of them aren't about that life.
So true, man. I think for me, what's been really cool is seeing you guys going after some of our kids who are actually ready to go down and play at the University of Texas.
Right.
How's it been actually having some of our kids down there with you and being in an environment of University of Texas football?
Awesome. And I think you're referring to Junior Angilao, and I'll tell you right now, he's my standard. Every bit of 6'4". I think right now he's carrying about 305. He's someone that I think he only played special teams his sophomore year when they won the state title at East High School. He didn't want the ring. I think he gave it to his dad. He felt like he didn't earn it. His junior year, he rotated in with the senior, right? And so what did he do? He just kept on working. He asked his dad to get him with a trainer so he could work out. Because one thing that Junior knows that he can hang his hat on is hard work, right? He didn't grow up playing a whole lot of football. He was like a basketball and a soccer guy, right? So, which is cool because that actually gave him good footwork, right? So, his senior year, he wasn't voted captain, and it pissed him off.
Wow.
So like when we were, when I was recruiting him, he would tell me these things, and he said, you know what, like I'm gonna show everyone that I should have been a captain of this team. And this is a guy that did everything the right way, was never late to anything. He set the tone in the weight room, right? 4.0 student, you know what I mean? Like he didn't hang out with the boys on the weekends. He was at home. Like he's a mama's boy, you know what I mean? And so, I mean, never got into any trouble or anything like that. And so, but, he ended up being an All-American at East High, So when he got invited to play in the U.S. Army All-American Bowl, his goal was to prove that he could be a captain. And so he went there, was there for about a week, earned the trust of the other All-Americans from across the country, and was voted captain. So he closed out his high school career as a captain like he always wanted. You know what I mean? So, like, he's my dude because he's self-made. You don't have to wake him up to go work out. He's already there. And if he has to walk, he'll walk. Whereas a lot of times, man, when I start, like, digging, I want to see, like, what the process is like for when the kid has to get up and work out early in the morning. Is someone having to drag him out of bed, or does he get up on his own? If his mom has to drag him out of bed, he might not be about that life. You know what I mean? So you kind of grab, bits and pieces here and there. You try to piece the puzzle together. Ask yourself, like, is he a grinder? And so they'll show you who they are. You know what I mean? You just got to trust it. So, kind of like film, eye in the sky does not lie. Put it on tape.
Man, I think anyone who gets into this industry, hard work is something that's, it's the bottom line, I guess, for everybody. You talked about how before, in your life, you kind of didn't really know what you're going to get into. Was jumping into football, did that just like trigger an excitement that you never really had? And it kind of helped you like, okay, I'm ready to invest all my time in this? Or is it more of like a learning process, learning how to work?
No doubt, like, walking into the football complex every day, like, you walked in with a sense of pride because, like, man, I'm working in college football. Even if it was, like, initially as a volunteer, you know what I mean? Like, especially with me not having much football experience, like, I just kind of thought, man, no one, like, because I think I told my best friend, and that was it, right? Because I was embarrassed. I didn't think anyone would believe in me, so walking in, in the building every day, and like I remember I think our first road game of 2008 was my first season. Mm-hmm. We played SMU in Dallas. So my first road game, I came home, and so my dad picked me up that night, and we hung out that night, and the next day, I can't remember who came to my game. I think it was my cousins and my mom. But like, here I was, like, on the sidelines, and we're playing SMU, and I feel like if we didn't have as many turnovers that we had, that we should have beat them. And we were an FCS program at the time. And even though we lost, I remember jumping back on the bus and just thinking, like, man, like, I could probably make this a career, And so we ended up winning conference that year. We were a top 5 offense, and I remember coming back to Euless one day, and I was flossing my conference ring, and I was hanging out with the boys, and we were drinking kava, and I just kind of looked around the circle, and there was probably about 20 of us, right? And I counted, I think 14 of them had played college ball, right? But I was one of them that didn't. Right, but I was one of 2 in that circle that had a conference ring. You know what I mean? And so I remember one of the OGs. I was passing the cup with my hand that had the ring on it, right? And he goes, "Man, put that away." I said, "Why?" He said, "Man, put that away." He said, "Don't try to come and floss your ring around us." And he was one of the guys that had a ring, right? And so I decided to get a little smart. I said, what's kind of funny is that you and I earned our rings from the same place. He said, "Where?" I said, "The sidelines." You know what I'm saying? So it's almost kind of like, humble yourself. You know what I mean? So instead of him being proud of me and what I was able to accomplish, he tried to shoot me down. But I reminded him, you were a player, you didn't play. You know what I mean? And so, I mean, it gave me a sense of confidence. And I remember hearing from some friends that, hey, so-and-so saying that, man, who the hell does Jake think he is, going out to Texas State trying to be a coach or whatever. And I just thought, man, like, the difference, and I hope I don't sound like a jerk by saying this, but the difference between the way I learned the game and the way that these guys learned the game is that they probably learned the game at a peewee level by just some dad who was probably just trying to figure it out. Whereas I learned the game from like coaches who had done some stuff. You know what I mean? Like my mentor, like he was mentored by Hal Hunter. Hal Hunter is a longtime NFL coach. You know what I mean? And so like I learned from some dudes. And so I mean that doesn't make me any better, but I'm just saying there's other ways to learn. You know what I mean? So you learn, some guys learn it at the age of 8 by someone that works at a bank. You know what I mean? Like I learned from dudes that put dudes in the NFL. So, you know, I think people just need to be more open about how people can get into this business. You know what I'm saying? Because you don't have to play college football to work in college football. You know, there's plenty of avenues to get into the business, whether it's recruiting, compliance, equipment, you know, being an assistant to the coach, operations, things like that. You know, so in my opinion, there should be more Polynesians working in college football than playing college football.
Wow. Kind of expand on that statement right there. Like,
well, because I mean, if you look at the percentages of how likely it is for a high school senior to play in college football, right? Man, I can't remember, 2%, 3%, something like that. Very small number, right? And so, basically, not everybody's going to have the DNA and work ethic to play at the next level. But if you still have a passion for the game, I mean, you can still, you can just kind of redirect that energy and work in college football. So, I mean, that's what I did. And so I wish I would have known about that route when I was younger, because instead of having 12 years of college experience, I'd have 22. You know what I mean? And so, and the thing about this business is that there's a lot of aspects about it that it's a young man's game, right? And so there are some doors that have closed on me because I'm 43. Like, it's crazy to me because I think 43 is still young. But if you look at NFL scouting, they want the young bucks that they can mold. So I think, because, you know, like, I'm no different than the guys that I evaluate. I want to be in the NFL too. But I think some of those doors have closed. And so I think if I can't be the first Tongan NFL scout, I hope I can develop him. You know, maybe some dude that wasn't quite good enough to play college football, but he loved the game, had a passion for the game. He was a student of the game, and you know, whatever school that I'm at the time, hopefully it's still Texas. If he can get into Texas, and he wants to work for me, man, I can probably shorten his route, you know, and help him. I guess just make sure he takes the right steps, avoids landmines and things like that. Because I learned the hard way. I was just trying to figure it out. So if he can lean on my experience and learn, and if I can't be that first guy, like, I'd like to develop him. You know what I'm saying? So,
and I just think it's so crazy. Like, just listening to like your journey in a sense. It's very rare for someone like you who didn't have the opportunity to play to be in the position that you're currently in. You know, oftentimes we look at all those guys who are coaching or on the sidelines who are in those type of positions, and it's kind of like what you said. Like, you looked around the room and there's only 2 of you.
Mm-hmm. Now I have more rings than everybody in the circle.
In that instance, is it more like, you know, I'm just really grateful to be where I'm at today, or, you know, there's a balance of gratefulness and, I'm trying to achieve as much as I possibly can.
It's both. I mean, like our culture preaches humility and gratitude. I think gratitude is embedded in our language, right? However, this is America. Right? It's cutthroat here, right? And so, one thing that Tuli ingrained in me, he said that you have to have the audacity to be great. And audacity was a big word to me that I'd never used before, and it was almost like he gave me permission, because in our culture, like, we all have our role, and we stay there. We stay in our lane, like, and you never want to, like, move out of your lane, or someone in the culture is going to check you, right? But when he used the word audacity, it was like freeing to me, and I thought, man, that could be me. He goes, somebody's got to be great. Why not you? And I ran with that, man. I ran with it because, growing up, you're always told, go here, go there, stay there, do this, do that. Don't say this, don't say that, right? Or, you go to a Tongan funeral, right? No, you can't go sit over there. You've got to go to the kitchen and cook. You've got to go roast a pig. That's our role in the culture. You know what I mean? Where Tuli, he had been away from the culture for a little bit because he was in Germany and some of those European countries. He got away from that, but to him it actually helped him because it wasn't holding him back. And so, sometimes we're so humble, we forget that we can be great. You just have to figure out that balance, and if you achieve some cool things, just make sure you don't brag about it. However, if you call me out, I'm going to rub it in your face. You know what I'm saying? So, like, football, you got to be a dog, so, I'm not going to, I think at this point, I'm not going to apologize for anything that I've done because I did it on my own and, well, with mentors, obviously, but, like, with all the relatives that I have working in college football, I didn't call any of them for help. And so I'm proud of that, and now that, when I was at Texas State, not a whole lot of schools reached out to me. I had some schools reach out to me, but not a whole lot. But getting to Texas and kind of having the Longhorn brand behind me, I think gave me an opportunity to show people what I could do. Then these other guys started reaching out to me. It's almost like, oh wow, he maybe he is that good, right? But for me, I just kind of had the mentality of, okay, I'm at the FCS level. I'm going to grind. I'm going to learn as much as I can. But if I ever get the chance to move up to the next level, like, I'm going to move up a weight class. We're going to score up. Let's go. Who's better? You know what I mean? And so I know I sound like a jerk just now, but I had to have that attitude, man. You know what I mean? Like, because, it's such a cutthroat business. You have to have some dog in you.
Man, yeah, I think having that competitive dog is something that's sometimes kind of lacking in our culture, in a sense. Like, we overstate the, be humble, keep your head down, work hard, and sometimes patting yourself on the back is what you needed to work a little harder. And so for me, in terms of working hard, there's always an extra motivation wherever that comes from. And so I kind of want to ask you, like, what has been your motivation? Has it always been, like, proving people wrong? Or is it, like, your family at home to provide for them? Like, what are the things that kind of drive you every day?
In our program, we have a saying. It says, prove yourself right. Right. So basically control what you can control. Don't worry about the outside noise. You know what I mean? We're going to do what we do. Right. I've had to adopt that more because I think initially I was worried about what people would think about me and thinking, maybe Jake doesn't belong in this business or whatever. But initially I did want to prove the haters wrong. I wanted to prove that I belonged. But you start having kids and stuff, and then they become your reason to work hard and do what's right. And I think when my dad passed away in 2011, like, football helped me heal. You know what I mean? So the players that I worked with at the time, like they rallied around me. So I think that's probably when I really stopped worrying about everybody else and just kind of realized, like, okay, my football family is going to look out for me. You know what I'm saying? So, but then, also, like, also my son, gotta have a son who he has autism, he has a rare genetic disease, and so we as a family make sacrifices to make sure that he has all the resources in the world to maximize his life, so you know, so if I get a call from a school, like, I might not entertain them seriously because I know that state doesn't really take care of the autism community like they should. So and Austin does. So we wanna make sure that he'll be fine. So I haven't really entertained any offers seriously because of that, because he's gonna come first. So and shoot, and I walked away from the game for about a year and a half and became a stay-at-home dad because of him. So I mean, so I'm not just like talking it because I want to sound like a great father. You know what I mean? Like talk about swallowing your pride and having people judge you as a man because you came home to take care of your son because he had doctor appointments literally every week the first year of his life, and he was over $1 million baby. But your wife had been with the company for a long time. You needed her insurance, but you want to chase this football dream. Like, what do you do? So swallowed my pride and came home and changed diapers and drove in downtown Austin for doctor appointments. And I mean, talk about really feeling judged. Like, I thought I was being judged before, but then, man, all of a sudden people found out that I was a stay-at-home dad, after doing the football thing for a little bit. And that's when I found, like, people were really laughing at me. So that's when I really had to really block people out, just focus on my family. And then I was able to get back into the game for a little bit. And then, but then, joining Texas was different. I mean, that's when, the Texas brand, the most powerful brand in college football, college sports. And so, I mean, that changed the game for me, but back to your initial question, like, it's definitely going to always be family, and to me, it makes me proud to come home and, like, people tell me that my dad would have been proud. So, I mean, I don't think that it really gets any better than that.
Yeah, I stand with that statement, man. Your pops would be a happy guy right now to see what you're doing today.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing is, like, I shot you this text and just recently, but when Bulu mentioned you as a mentor, right?
Yeah, that tripped me out. Yeah.
And I was looking at when he was saying those things, and I was like, dang, how many more other people is like Jake probably helping out that none of us know about? And for me, I think the biggest thing we can learn from is, on your way up to wherever you're going to achieve anything, the best thing you could possibly do is, if you have the means to do it, help another person reach theirs.
No doubt.
Yeah, because there's no better feeling than knowing that, maybe some advice you gave someone a certain day was the reason why they didn't quit on that day specifically.
Right.
And so they kept chasing.
Yeah. I think that's embedded in our culture, paying it forward. I mean, I remember growing up, and we didn't always have a lot, but I remember, whenever we'd have the missionaries over and there wasn't a whole bunch of food, like, the missionaries ate, we didn't, you know what I mean? And so, I remember, man, we lived in a small 2-bedroom apartment. There were 7 of us, and it was low income housing. And man, it always bothered me that my dad would, like, take people in. Like, I grew up, I never had my own room. I never had my own bed. I always slept on the sofa, right? But then my dad would, like, let people live with us who had hit hard times. And I just thought, why are you doing that? Like, there's one small bathroom. We're all sharing that. Right now, we went from 7 people to, like, 10, right? So, but I remember this one particular guy that was married to my aunt. they were on their way out. They're about to move out, and they had thanked my dad for taking them in for a few months and helping them out and helping them get back on their feet. And and he wanted to like break my dad off with some change, with some cash, and my dad said, "No, keep it, like save it, like go live your life, But the only thing that I ask is if you ever see one of my kids around, like feed them. That's it." So I just thought, and so whenever so if I go to Utah or something, and someone wants to pay for my meal, I automatically think about my dad. I wonder if my dad looked out for him back in the day. You know what I'm saying? So, like paying it forward, I mean, we have to. I mean, especially with our people, there's not very many of us in this country. And so, if we can help each other out, do it. You know what I mean? And so, we're still pretty young, in a lot of things. I mean, the whole podcast game, I don't know a whole lot of Polynesians that are in it, in media and all that stuff. And so, for those guys to get an opportunity to learn from whoever they learn from, they should pay it forward, and at some point, we're all going to be able to look back on this and reflect and think about all the people that had helped us out, and like, it's going to be like a spider web, and it's going to connect everybody, and you're like, oh, wow, so-and-so? Mm-hmm. Yeah, he helped me do this. Wow, he did this for me, blah, blah, blah. So our world is small, especially with Polynesians, and then especially with football and sports. And so you have to be mindful of what you're doing. And I tell you what, man, if you're an idiot, people will find out real quick, Mm-hmm. And so so we have to protect, our brand, what we stand for, and you think about all the hard work that your parents have put in to bring honor to your family name. Now that's on you, dog. Like POP, it isn't just POP, you know what I mean? You're talking about the Holas, you're talking about the Tavos, you're talking about everybody. So, like, people are going to be watching you, so as long as you're ready, handle that, dog, and I think in the text, you had shot me about advice or whatever, and, like, I don't know anything about this game, the podcast game, but I just remember telling you that that you're going to be the one to set the tone, and that you're going to have to be Jason Kidd and set people up for success, but sometimes you're going to have to score, right? So just be mindful of that. So if it's you shooting a three-pointer or like an alley-oop to somebody, just be ready,
First, I want to say not only thank you to you, but there's a lot of people, like, I know for the longest time, I don't know why it is, but every time I come down to Texas, I usually come down by myself, and that just happens to happen that way. And there's so many kids in the youth who were, like, under my dad when he was a bishop, or, like, just people who, who've been really close with my dad over the years, who have, like, hey, let me pay for your meal here, let me pay for your meal here. Yeah. And, like, that whole story about your dad, like, that's, like, the memory that comes back to me. And, like, I think back about, man, I can remember ever since I was, like, a junior or senior in high school, and I would come down to Texas, and I'll probably get, like, 3 or 4, like, free meals while I was down here for, like, a week or two. And and it happens almost every single time. And now it's coming back tenfold. And, like, the biggest thing is, like, I'm just so grateful my dad treated these people the way they should have been treated. Yeah. And
it's not necessarily because of you. It's because of him. Yeah. Right. And so, but because you carry on his legacy, people are going to look out for you, and it's trust that your dad has earned. Right. So you got to make sure not to screw that up.
Yeah. And I think the biggest thing is, like, emotions are just coming to me now. Like, I've always known, like, my dad was a good guy, but, like, when you're a really good guy is when other people come and tell you about it. Yeah.
Like, one of the cool memories that I have of your dad was, my cousin, Neti Dalfatofua, she married Randy, mm-hmm. And so when they got married in Oakland, there's a lot of people that claim to be like a second father to that family, because everybody loves Fina and Ahi's family, right? And so, Fina passed away in the early 90s, and so everyone kind of felt like, oh, that's my family now, right? Anyways, but I just remember at Netti's wedding, your dad walked her down the aisle. You know what I mean? So like, and that includes my dad, you know, but because the type of bishop that he was and the type of man that he was, very loving, very non-judgmental, served everybody, very humble. Like you could trust him, you know, you could trust him to not only offer like great advice, but he was going to be there for you, you know. So like, I mean, by far, he's my favorite bishop that I had growing up, you know, definitely.
Man, I want to like share a few stories. I don't usually get the opportunity to talk about, you know, who my dad is as a person. But I remember we came down for my niece's baptism a few years back, and while we were there, so you know, Crystal, Mama Langi and them,
Right.
all her brothers were there,
Right.
and you know they hold my dad to like on a pedestal. And I remember the way they like admired my dad. It was like I had never seen that before. They come up, it's like, oh, Bishop Hola, man, I haven't seen you in a minute.
Right.
And they're asking, it's like, you still got your jumper? Like, can you still
Right.
do this, and
Right.
that?
Right.
And then like they're all dapping him up like he's the coolest guy. And then he walks away, and for like the next like 10, 20 minutes, I just heard all their stories with my dad. And it was like the coolest moment because, man, I'm getting like emotional here thinking about it. But they were saying, like, you know what, the one thing that was cool about your pops was, like, he never judged us,
Right.
no matter what we did.
Right.
And a lot of people always, like, tell me, like, man, like, when I was growing up in Utah, they would say there are so many things that kind of, like, remind us of what your dad was whenever he was younger.
Right.
And I feel the same exact way that they do, but, like, it's just like a testament, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Well, the thing, I think, you know, context is important, right? And so we have to remember that, you know, that the Mama Langi boys, like, they're some roughnecks. You know what I mean? And so, like, you know, they had some swag. You know, they had some Bay Area roots, and so they brought a different swag to Texas. And you know, I think a lot of people at that time judged them because, you know, maybe some of them had gotten into trouble. But those Mama Langi boys, man, they were dogs on the field. You know, they were straight up dogs, and they talked trash to everyone. But the thing is, like, the thing that people forget about them is that they're all Eagle Scouts. You know what I mean? Where, you know, like, everyone was so busy judging them because their perception on them, they didn't realize the work that those kids were doing. You know what I mean? And so it didn't matter that maybe, like, some of them had, like, ties to gangs or whatever through their family members, but Bishop didn't worry about that. You know what I mean? So that's why they loved him. Like, and that's the thing. Whether you're like a church mouse or like you're like a reformed gang member, you love Bishop Hola. You know what I'm saying? So because everybody was welcome. You know what I mean? And so, I mean, even the sign outside the church, it says visitors welcome, right? And so, to me, it was always, it doesn't just speak to the visitors, but also to maybe the members of the church that felt like outcasts or didn't feel welcome there, you know, because maybe there were some church people judging them. But, you know, church is for everybody. You know what I'm saying? And so Bishop really, he really built like a welcoming culture for everybody. And man, that was such a fun time too. Like it was a really good mix of you know, learning and spirituality and fun, you know, and he mixed all those things together where, like, you didn't feel like someone was preaching to you. You know what I'm saying? And so, and even the dudes that were like a bit thugged out, like, they felt welcome there because of your dad. You know what I mean? And so, for you to tell me that story, it's not surprising. You know what I mean? Because, like, Bishop's awesome, man. Like, he's the type of leader that people want to be around, you know, and the type of guy that people trust.
Man, that's so awesome to hear. I think we're getting pretty close in terms of time. I think I want to just do a few rapid questions for you,
Sure.
and then we'll go ahead and close out.
Sure.
So we'll kind of take the edge off and just go into who's the best athlete you played with growing up?
Man, there was actually a guy that I grew up with. His name was Monty Holloway. His dad had played in the NFL for the Bears. I think by far he was probably the best athlete that that I grew up with playing with. But he didn't have a whole lot of direction. He fell into some things, and I don't even know where he is right now. But anytime I think of like the best athlete, like during my time, I definitely think him. I think that growing up, and being exposed to some high schools here, I think the best athlete that I ever saw was a guy named Eric Vance from LD Bell. I think he was the letterman in 3 sports. He super smart too, so he got into Vanderbilt. I think he was a 4-year starter there. Played in the NFL. He's worked as like a director of football operations at places like Miami. He's worked in the NFL for a long time. I think he worked for the Bucks. I hear he's back here in the DFW area coaching. And if there's one person that deserves to be in the HEB Hall of Fame, it's him. That great of an athlete. And I went to Trinity, you know what I mean? But like, I just knew growing up, whenever we went to Trinity Bell games, whether it was basketball or football, that's the dude you had to watch out for, And so, yeah, Eric Vance, Monty Holloway.
Awesome. All right, I'll put you on spot. Best Trinity football team that's come through the ranks.
I think it's easy to point to the state championship teams. You know what I mean? I'll tell you what though, man, that Trinity team that lost to Lufkin in the semifinals or quarterfinals or whatever. Man, what was that quarterback's name? Reggie McNeil that went on to A&M.
That boy's cold, man.
I tell you what, man, you take him out. I think Trinity goes to state that year. I mean, that team was loaded as well. The Lufkin team was, but I think Trinity was winning 20-something to 0 at halftime, and he literally brought them back, and Lufkin won because of his legs and his arm. I mean, I think they should be in the conversation. You know what I mean? I think it's important to like understand history when we start talking Trinity, because I think everyone will always point to the state championship teams. You know what I mean? And it, I mean, they deserve it. I mean, they're the ones that really put Trinity on the map. But I think if you look back on some of the teams that lost deep into the playoffs, like even that, I think that 94-95 team, I think they lost. Trinity had gone to, I think, state title 92. And 93 did really, really well. Then 94 was Molo Vailahi's senior year. They went really deep into the playoffs. I think they were undefeated at that time, and then they lost, I think, in the quarterfinals or semifinals. Like, that team was loaded, man. That team was loaded. But I think if you had to make me pick, I know I'm talking too much now, but if you're making me pick, man, you can't go wrong with any of the 3 state championship teams. Because that first one, man, with Manaki Vaitai and
Freak up front,
man, Saya. I mean, the running back, Dimitri, and then and the quarterback. To me, the quarterback play is the difference maker at Trinity, because if you look at the 3 state championship teams, they all had quarterbacks that went on to the next level. So it wasn't just someone that was handing people off; they could be a threat in the passing game. And so, I'd probably go. Yeah, I tell you what, watching Naki pull, Naki was I think Naki is someone else that doesn't probably get remembered as much as he should be. Naki was a dog, straight up dog.
I remember watching that 05 team was kind of what got me into loving the game of football, I guess.
Right.
So I think my last question to you would be, who what would be your advice to, kids aspiring to play college football?
Playing college football. Okay, so as an evaluator, right, these are the things that I look for. I think it will always start out with DNA, right? They've got to have good DNA, right? And that comes from mom and dad, right? After that, like, what's the only thing that maximizes DNA? Work ethic. That comes from mom and dad, right? They have to be physically and mentally tough. I think for the most part that comes from home. I think coaches can assist in that, but for the most part it comes from home. Valuing academics comes from home, right? Being coachable comes from home, right? And I kind of have my own twist on things. My last part, but it's probably the most important, is they have to respect their mom, because if a recruit is getting recruited by a ton of colleges, coaches, recruiters, or whatever, they're gonna hear a lot of people's personal philosophies and things like that. To me, at the end of the day, if you remember to respect your mom and to not embarrass her, that covers every base, right? And so I've walked away from big time recruits because they were petty towards their mom. So, like, to me, if you're not respectful to the person that has had your back since day one, right? Actually, 9 months prior to day one, you're not going to listen to us when things suck. You know what I mean? And so, and whether that person's a mom or maybe if you're raised by your grandma, or maybe like your single dad, or whoever that person is, you have to respect them, and so if you kind of look back on everything that I just said, like, all that comes from home, right? And so we learn respect at home. If church is important to you, religion is important to you, you learn that from home. To me, church supplements that. You only go to church once a week, but you learn church every single day at home, right? So that's what I look for, and I think they have to be realistic if they ask themselves those things, like, do I have the DNA to play at the next level? And if I do, what level? And so, like, do I have the work ethic? I mean, have I been doing everything? And so, just showing up to practice and all the required meetings and workouts and stuff, that's expected. What extra are you doing? You know what I mean? And so I want to know the extra part. Like, you're doing everything that you're supposed to do at school. Like, you're supposed to. I don't give you bonus points for that. But I want to know that you're doing work on your own, some type of, like, anything, whether it's like working out or doing some drill work on your own. It's the extra that I focus on. So if they don't show me extra, like, I'm going to move on with my life. So yeah, all those things, they just ask themselves that, be honest with themselves, and I think if they start there, then they pretty much know if they're really about that life or not.
Thank you. I think in closing, before we close, that mom spot kind of hits for me, just because Jake's mom is pretty much the mom of ULIS.
Right.
And so for those of you who don't know Mickey Langi, she's always been a huge impact on the community.
Right.
And so thank you to you, your family, and for everything you've done for our community. And we'll wrap it up here, man. Thank you guys for tuning in to the Power Perception Podcast.
Try to put me in a box, I'm busting out, I'm breaking every little single lock. The power of my mind is endless if I cater to it. And all my people looking at me like I know you do it. I'm yelling back, perception of the mind is everything. Don't take your time and just plan out for all the time between. Look into the mirror, hanging on my wall.